Hi, it's Robin with Oxy-Dry. And, oops, today I'm going to talk a little bit about rotary machines in just a minute. But first of all, I just want to show you how I clean my fiber pads. Got a couple here that need cleaning. And pretty straightforward. They get gummed up with soil and whatnot. So, just take the hose. There it is. And off it comes. It doesn't have to be perfect, but over time they do get deteriorated, and this one's got a bit more miles on it. You can see it's sort of beginning to tear a little bit. Still usable as they get more used. They're more gentle. The newer ones have a little more aggression. So bear that in mind if you've got a really soiled carpet. Might want to go to a newer one, and if it's not as soiled, or for whatever reason you want to have a gentler aggression, then use the one that's already been broken in, I guess you could say. Anyway, let's go over here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of things. First of all, talk about the need to keep your cooling system working on your machines. Now, this particular machine, which you can see I actually have 3 of them, well technically 4, because I'll talk about that in a sec, and that's actually the motor for it right there. And what happened is, on my original machine, which is the one that's actually right over here, I began to experience the motor cutting out. And after a while, I just stopped. And after a few minutes, it would start running again. And that went on for a little while. Pardon me. And eventually, what I did is actually replaced it. I think I got this one. Or actually, maybe it was this one. But one that looked like that, because now it's rebuilt. Anyway, so what I did is eventually I had the motor pulled out, and I had it rebuilt. Cost of about $600 or $700, I think, because there's a like a thermal switch in the windings, or it could have been just a winding had burned through, and it was expanding in the heat, and then just making an open circuit, and then it would just quit. I wasn't sure which it was, and the repair guy wasn't completely sure either. But anyway, I had to get it rewound, and that's fine. And actually, that's the motor that's in this machine, which was I had rebuilt this machine with that motor in it, that one right there. But something disastrous happened to that motor, and that's what I wanted to talk about. So what we're going to talk about is what happens when we turn on our machines, and why it's important. And you'll see why in a sec, because what I did. And probably you do it too. If you're a rotary user, you might be in the habit of doing this, and you're going to break that habit real quick. Anyway, what we got here is this is the clutch. This particular clutch is this one drive block here has got the clutch as part of the drive block, but not all of them do. You may have one that has a separate clutch, and that's what this is. This is actually a clutch. And what happens is this mechanism, which is on top of the drive block, will hook into the hang on a minute. This is actually on the bottom of my machine, which I'm going to show you on the left here in a sec. But this is what is the bottom of the machine. Now, most machines don't have this set up exactly, because you may have this is a belt-driven machine. So most rotor machines actually have a transmission. This does not have a transmission. It has a reduction drive, and I'll show you how that works in this machine right here, which I took the bottom plate off. I'm going to tilt it back. So, here's the drive mechanism. On this machine, the motor shaft is actually right there. It's not over here. It's offset. You can see the motor on these units is offset. So the center point of the weight actually is right here, which actually, because of the way the torque works on these machines, when you're using them, counteracts the pull and makes it a very even, balanced machine when it's running. It's just fantastic. That's one reason why I use it. And so it's a belt drive, so this is spinning at, I don't know how fast it spins. Pretty fast, actually, but many more revolutions here than here. And this is actually the drive portion of the machine. The motor spinning here probably spins 30 times to this once. So this spins real fast, and this reduces the speed, but multiplies the torque. That's what I'm trying to say. It multiplies the torque. So, like a pulley. Well, it is a pulley. You can see. And this is the idler pulley, which gives it the tension, and you can see the spring right here, and the belt. And you can see it's actually, can you see that? That's a multi-V belt. And I've only replaced a belt once. It didn't actually break, but it did start to get quite deteriorated, and I actually do have a brand new belt sitting in the shop over there. But the belts last many years. I have had to replace bearings in here a couple times, but that was an issue that was caused by, I was getting water solution backing up in here, because this is actually where the solution comes out. Most machines have a what's called a shower feed. It might come up down over here and drop onto the top of the drive block. Would drop down here and then spin out the sides. Now this machine is a center feed. All of them are, all the same machine. Although I actually have this one here modified so that I can also shower feed if I want. And there's different reasons why I will want to do that. But anyway, so what happens is the solution feeds down through here. But I want to talk about the drive. Now you can see that these three wings that stick out here. Now this is what's actually going to connect with the clutch. It's right here. So the drive block, which is attached to this, you drop your machine down onto the drive block. If you put your drive block down on the floor, then you roll your machine up, push it down, drop it down. It's going to drop down like that. But here's what can happen. And you got to be aware of this. If you just pull your machine, pull your switch, machine goes zoom. It's going to go snap like that. You get it? It's going to go crack. And you probably have done that. We've all done it. You can get away with it. At least a few times, maybe even a lot of times. Now, if you have a machine that has a transmission as opposed to a pulley system or a belt drive, your motor will be actually up in behind, straight up above your transmission. And the shock of this going snap enough times will send a shock right through your transmission and up into your motor shaft, and a number of things can happen. One is you could actually bend or shear off a gear, because there's the way that those transmissions work is I believe there's 3 planetary gears in there. That reduces the motor spins much faster, there's 3 gears spinning around inside there that reduce and multiply your torque. It does the same thing as this, only with the transmission. It's very interesting how they work. If you ever see an exploded diagram of them, it's quite fascinating, actually. But anyway, or there is actually a safety fuse, as it were, in the system of the machines with the transmission. This machine does not have it because it has the belt. But there's it looks like a little disc with a little flat spade in the middle of it, that one half goes up into the spline of your motor shaft, and the other half goes down into the spline in your transmission. And it's meant to snap. And one day I was running with one of my older machines, well, years ago, everything's older, and all of a sudden my machine went zing, but nothing was happening. The motor was running and spinning, but the drive block wouldn't turn. And what had happened is that particular safety fuse had let go. And it's like it doesn't even cost much, but it's a fairly big deal to pull off a transmission and replace that safety fuse, or as it were, is like a key that would snap. There's a proper name for it. I don't remember what it is. But anyway, or you could do what I did. No, mine didn't have the safety switch or safety fuse, whatever. And what happened is, after many times of doing that, and I knew I shouldn't, but I wasn't all that careful. Now I am, because disaster struck. And one day, all of a sudden, my machine started vibrating like crazy, and all of a sudden, zing, motor running, drive block not turning. And this motor right here is actually, this shaft right here, snapped. That's the shaft that you see right there. That is actually the grooved end which drives the belt. It snapped right off. Nice clean break too. See that? Oh my goodness. I was like, oh man, what an idiot. So, when you engage your machine onto your drive mechanism, so here's the drive block right here in front of me on the machine. We'll take that off. I'm going to show you how you should do it, just to be clear. And we'll talk a bit more about, I'm going to take that off for now. I'm going to show you something about that right there in a sec. But here's how it should be done. This machine is plugged in, ready to roll. So I'm going to drop it down in place onto the drive block. There, it just dropped into place, but it isn't engaged. It's just sitting there with slack. And if I pulled the trigger right now, it would go snap. I mean, it'll engage, but it'll send a shock up into the motor shaft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little light tap of power, just a brief, just like that. See that? Just a little zoom. Now it's engaged. So I can turn it on, and no shock up into the motor shaft. So you'll last a lot longer, maybe last forever, if you don't do what I did, which was wrong. Cost me money. I mean, the motor itself is about $800, I think. I think I priced it out. Maybe I'll replace it, and I will talk about that in a sec. Anyway, so now let's talk about what I got right here. Now this is actually the cap of this motor. And I'm going to show you. Now I have, as you can see, I have 3 of these machines sitting here. And actually I have 4, although this one obviously is missing something. We'll get to that in a sec. But this is what the original machine looks like. This one is set up with a mighty tank. It's never been run. This is a brand new machine. I actually bought the last one out of the factory. Literally, they went into the warehouse and we got one left. I said, send it. They don't make it anymore. And it's, I think, the best machine I've ever used, and that's why I have it. So let's take a look. You take the motor cap off, and this is what you normally see on the top of the motor. Nothing wrong with that. Remember I told you about the motor that burned out? Well, this is why it burned out. The cooling vents for this machine are right here. It kind of pull. There's a gap here, and the air comes in all around the perimeter. Now, I was just not thinking, not paying attention, and what happened is over time, carpet fibers got clogged up into here, and the motor began to run hotter and hotter. And I didn't realize what was happening, wasn't paying attention, and the air needs to be drawn into here and blown through the motor to keep it running cool. So you got to take care of your machine. Now, one thing I did on this machine, I kind of came across this a bit by accident, but anyway, this is a really simple little device. This, as you can see, I put a different cap on this motor. Chrome, like chrome. Actually polished aluminum, I guess. Anyway, this screen here, which is actually a cooling for a computer screen, works fantastic at catching the dust, and it doesn't go into the motor, or virtually none does anyway. And every few weeks or month or whatever, I just pop that lid off and I clean this screen. I actually did it maybe a week or two ago. You can see it's beginning to get some junk on there. Anyway, keep your motor clean. And these motors will last decades usually. If you've got a good quality machine, it'll last for a very long time. This particular machine is actually 1.5 horse. This is a Swiss-made machine, European, really high quality machine. It's a dual capacitor, so it just runs fantastic. I think they're about 10.5 amps, so it's not a high amperage draw. And yeah, you just really, the quality of the machinery from Europe obviously is often better than what we see nowadays. A lot of stuff's coming from Indonesia, and I just wanted to talk about the way these machines are made. You can see this is a single piece. This is actually the frame, and the bell housing and the frame where the motor sits is all a single cast aluminum. It's fairly heavy. It's at least 20, not 30 pounds, I would think. 20, 25 pounds. And this is actually where the handle attaches. You can see how skookum that is. And this, being aluminum, it will never rust. And this one is in the process of being completely rebuilt, like this one. And as you see, I went with the putty color. I thought, hey, that looked cool. Kind of reminds me of those old 1950s pickups. The Ford pickup, I think, had a color like that, I think. But anyway, that's cast aluminum, and this one already has, you can see I actually have this one set up for the shower feet as well. But anyway, that's a work in progress. I've got most of the pieces, I think, for it. I will have to, in this case, I would have to buy the new motor because I'm missing a motor. So I actually have 4 of these machines, 3 of them running. This one here is actually my backup. If this one, for whatever reason, quits on me, I can quickly grab this machine and it's ready to go. And this is my, well, it was the last one they made, so I figured I better hang on to it. I can fortunately get all of the running gear parts that I need, like bearings and belts. Their new version of this machine doesn't have this frame, and it has a lighter motor. It doesn't have the heavy. This is a 1.5 horse motor. I think it's a 66 frame. and the newer one is lighter duty, just has a partial frame on it. It's not the same machine, although the handle mechanism, the release mechanism, the handle, and everything else is the same. But these old this is old way of thinking with the aluminum frame and everything. The old Hilds and the Clarks and the Advances, they were all in general. They used to be solid aluminum base and bell, and you didn't get you're not going to get the rust. You get if it's painted like this. Now over time the paint does get knocked off on these. I think this one has some scratches on it. Let me see. Yeah, I got a few scratches on this side already. You can see right down in here. It does scratch off fairly easy, and it's starting to flake up here. And once it starts to flake, then it accelerates, I guess you could say. So this machine here is powder coated, and that is the way to go. It's not that expensive, and this powder coating is now over 2 years old. There's no flaking. I do have a few scratches on it, but I don't think anything's actually gotten through to the aluminum, mostly just scuffs. So the powder coating is definitely the way to go. And I even was able to powder coat the shaft, which was aluminum, and the original shaft, handle shaft, which is, you can see it over on that machine. You see it's chrome. It was starting to rust. So powder coating. You got to strip it all right down to nothing though to do that, and but it's worth it in the end. For me, because I knew this was the machine I wanted to keep, it was worthwhile spending a little bit of money and time and upgrading it. And if you want to see the video where I explain all the modifications that I've done to this particular machine, there's a video on YouTube there called Oxy-Dry set machine, I think it's called, or whatever. It's on my channel anyway. You want to watch that. I go into more detail about exactly what modifications are done to make it a better machine. And of course, one of the really handy things is these wheels. I do know why they don't put the big wheels on. Why do they need to? Most of the time these machines were really intended to be used in facilities where you're not rolling it across someone's front lawn. Anyway, so I thought you might find that kind of interesting and maybe helpful to making your life more easier, because we don't like it when we get sudden breakdowns of our equipment. That's not fun. You're out in the middle of nowhere is where it will break. That job at the extreme extreme of your range is when your machine breaks down, and that's never a good idea. So maybe it'll help if you remember just to, when you are starting your machine, be gentle. That initial startup, don't slam your drive block and your clutch together, and make sure you keep your cooling vents clean. If you've got a machine, by the way, which has the cooling vents on top, and I do have one here, because a lot of machines do that, like my Orbital here. Here's one here. My CX was right there, but this is the same machine without the tank. Make sure you keep these clean up on top, and once in a while you want to pop this off and clean the fan blades in here, because they'll get gummed up and it'll stop blowing the air as readily as it should. So I would recommend you do that. Make sure you take care of your machines, and they'll keep you earning your money, and that's what we're here for, right? Anyway, hopefully that'll help you. Thank you.